morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a look at a Lanturn card. I like Lanturn, ladies and gentlemen. This is a really tricksy, awkward Pokemon, but it's one that I think has an awful lot of potential. Now, quick disclaimer off the bat, I am, shall we say, predisposed to like Lanturn. And I've told this story before, but the very first national championships I ever attended was with a Feraligatr Lanturn deck, very shortly after the release of Unleashed, when Lanturn was new and shiny, literally, foil card. But I still think this Lanturn's really cool. Now, if we start off having a look at the basics, it's got 120 HP, which is slightly lower than we'd like. We see a lot of 130 HP stage ones, we'd prefer that. Weakness to fighting, it's alright. Like I've been saying, a lot of these fighting weak Pokemon like Pikachu and Zekrom and Raichu and Alolan Raichu, they're seeing a bit of a dip in play, so fingers crossed. And a retreat cost of 2 isn't ideal, but then again we've got Balloon now, and Balloon will give you free retreat, so that's quite nice. Balloon's going to see a lot of play. It's an objectively worse version of Floatstone, but still going to see a lot of play because we don't have Floatstone in Standard. And you're a lightning Pokemon. Being a lightning Pokemon is awesome. Being a lightning Pokemon means that you've got access to Thunder Mountain to reduce your attack cost, Tapu Koko to accelerate energy, and of course Electro Power to do a little bit of extra damage. Being a lightning Pokemon is rad. Plus, of course, water Pokemon nowadays, like Lapras V for instance, do seem like they're going back to a water weakness. This is a very good thing indeed. And I know I put a picture of Lapras VMAX up, and I'm totally okay with that. Now, the first attack for Lanturn is one we are not going to dwell on. 1 colourless energy, 30 damage, it's not particularly good. Sure, you can use Electro Power to boost up the amount of damage you're doing, and of course we've also got Electrocharger if you want to reuse Electro Power, because it helps you to recover them. Maybe you find some 60 HP basic that's weak to lightning and it one hits, but let's not spend any more time talking about it. It's not a particularly good attack. It won't even get a Ditto Prism Star, for goodness sake. What I am far more interested in is the second attack. And according to the lovely David Hockman over at limitlesstcg.com/translations, a brilliant place for, for a lot of your Pokemon needs. Translations, tournaments, really nice articles written by really good players. There's a lot to like on that website. Strobe Shock. 90 damage, look at your opponent's hand. If they have an energy in their hand, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. This is awesome. It's not automatic paralysis, alright? It does not automatically paralyze, but it gives you a really, really good chance to get into the paralysis here. Now, it's a weird one because it's largely in your opponent's control. Not 100%, we'll talk about all this in a minute. It's largely in your opponent's control, and if your opponent is able to just stop, then they are. Yeah, if they're able to just keep the energy out of their hand, there isn't really very much you can do about it. But there's going to be plenty of times where your opponent isn't. There are going to be plenty of times where your opponent has to keep an energy in their hand, and when they keep an energy in their hand, in you come to save the day. And straight off the bat, this is a phenomenal use for the card Surprise Box. It's a card that sees a little bit of play in Trixie decks, and it's perfect here. Put a card from your opponent's discard pile into their hand. Now, maybe your opponent has no energy in their discard pile, but the reality is it is extremely difficult to keep energy out of your discard pile for the entire game. It's possible. It can be done. I mean, especially if you're playing something like an Alolan Ninetales deck that doesn't play any energy, but generally speaking, it's basically impossible for the majority of decks to go very long with no energy in a discard pile. So you play Surprise Box, you grab an energy, you put it into your opponent's hand, and then you paralyze them. Ha ha ha! Lovely. That's really the guaranteed way here. Outside of that, you're getting a little bit more I keep using the word, but a little bit more tricksy. So, for instance, we've got Lavender Town. Lavender Town, once during your turn, allows you to look at your opponent's hand. And then once during their turn, they can look at yours, but it's likely to be less useful for them. So what you do is you look at their hand, and if they've got an energy, yay, attack and paralyze them. If they don't, then you drop something like a reset stamp. Or, of course, if you want to do it all in one go, how about Peeking Red Card? Peeking Red Card lets you look at your opponent's hand, and you may make them shuffle their hand into their deck and draw a new hand of the same number of cards. So that would be kind of cool. Great thing about Peeking Red Card, you have a look, you have the information, and then you get to make the decision. It's a lot of fun. Tell me that doesn't sound like fun. I might have to call you a liar if you do. And they're really the ways you can make sure your opponent has an energy card in hand. Now, one of the things which is very, very strange here is that we've got a new ruling which actually kind of hurts you. So I did a video about this, I'll pop a link in the description, but for instance, energy retrieval. Energy retrieval is coming back and lets you pick up 2 basic energy from the discard pile. The problem is, the way they're worded in Japan, and there's no way that doesn't end up coming over here, incidentally, is that it is now you may pick up to 2 basic energy and put them into your hand. And that is a big, gigantic, ginormous difference. It's not the same. And now your opponent can pick up 1. Time was you would play energy retrieval, you would pick up 2, attach 1 this turn, 1 next turn. Now, obviously, if your opponent's playing something like Welder, they can just attach the 2 energy and it's fine. But if you can only attach 1 energy during your turn, Magnezone, another example of when you'd be able to attach multiple. And yes, I do mean both Magnezone. But outside of that, generally speaking, it's 1 energy per turn. Okay. So now your opponent can just pick up 1. It used to be they'd have to pick up 2, and then they'd have 1 left in their hand, and boom, paralysis. Now, they can pick up just 1, and then not do it. But then, of course, if they want to pick up 2 and they're only picking up 1, that still works out quite nicely for you. Your opponent is still not doing something they'd rather be doing to try and hurt you, and I've said many, 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 many times, and I'll probably say many, 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 many more, that's a good thing. When your opponent is hurting themselves to hurt you, this works out very, very nicely indeed. Now, the problem is this is still inherently awkward. Even Surprise Box, you're limited to 4 in your deck. Even if you Lavender Town and they don't have an energy and you reset stamp, you're not guaranteed that they'll hit an energy. Even if you Peeking Red Card, you're still not guaranteeing that they're going to hit an energy. It is an inherently unreliable card. And I make no bones about that, ladies and gentlemen. I make no bones about that at all. But that does not mean this is not a good card. The big question, for me at least, is it better than the Pincurchin we looked at yesterday? And that I don't really have a great answer to. Pincurchin, you flip 4 coins for 2 energy. For each heads, you do 30 damage. If you flip 2 or more heads, paralysis. So Pincurchin, you should, in theory, hit paralysis every turn, but it's still a gamble. Here, you've got a little bit of control in that there are turns where you can use Surprise Box to guarantee it, but your opponent has a bit more control than you do. Pincurchin is a basic. I'm going to leave that one up to you to decide. The fact of the matter is we've got good options for paralysis coming, and in a format where people are going to be going away from cards like a skateboard to play the aforementioned balloon, and where we no longer have things like Ace Roller and Guzma, we are in a format which is far better for taking advantage of special conditions. The other thing I should mention is that between the aforementioned Thunder Mountain, the aforementioned Tapu Koko, and things like Triple Acceleration Energy, we are really not going to be worried at all about getting the energy on here. It's going to be very, very simple. So let's give this a good, solid 3 Wassies. Which I suppose means I think Pincurchin's a little bit better. But we all know no one has a 100% hit rate, and I certainly don't, though I do my very best. But I'd like to know what you think about this, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to know how you feel about Lanturn, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't have any Pokemon in, but they're still a lot of fun. And by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.